To do in this segment here is to talk about the connection between the Old Testament and the New Testament, also known as typology. And so as a little tip, what you might want to do is grab a couple cups of coffee if you have a friend, or a couple glasses of wine, and be able to watch each segment, stop it, take a sip, chat, and then move on to the next segment so that you can really internalize each connection between the Old and the New Testament. So typology, or the connection between the new and the old, is, I want to describe it in two ways. First of all, typology from St. Augustine describes that the New Testament is somehow hidden in the Old, and the Old Testament is revealed in the New. So let me repeat that in a different way. The New Testament is somehow already in seed form. So it's like the New Testament is already in seed form. So you take the seed and you put it in the ground, and so that it's hidden, and that little seed is eventually going to grow and reveal itself. And so it becomes a tree and it has fruit on it and blossom, etc. And so the New Testament is hidden in the Old, and the Old revealed in the New. And so that the Old Testament is preparing us for the New Testament. The Old Testament is a preparation for the New Testament. God is trying to tell us something in the Old to prepare us for the New. So it's kind of like this. You have a dollhouse, and the dollhouse, you know, the little children are playing, and there's a kitchen and a dining room, and you're moving all the little figures and all that. And you might make the mistake of putting the laundry into the dishwasher, and you go, shucks, right? Or maybe you go to the washing machine and you end up putting the dishes in there. You go, you can make all the mistakes in the Old Testament, but the house, the dollhouse, is really preparing us for the real house, which is the New Testament. So stay tuned, and we'll, as I said, to really stop at each one and to chat about each segment. Typology number one, the connection between the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament is preparing us for the New Testament. And what I have here behind me is a bird hovering over the waters. And so what you're going to see is that God is trying to teach us again and again and again, over and over and over again. And so he's going to use the idea of water and spirit. Water and spirit. We have to realize that the word spirit in Hebrew is very rich. So it can mean breath, wind, or spirit. And it's all three of them. It's a very rich word. So we're going to go through the idea of water, spirit, water, spirit. So at the beginning of creation, you had God had the waters, and then he either breathed over the waters or the wind hovered over the waters. So you got the wind, or the breath of God, breathing over, hovering over the waters of creation. So you got water and creation, new life, beginning. So then we're going to go to a guy by the name of Noah. And again, with Noah, you've got lots of water. So will you say, where's the spirit? Well, Noah sent out a dove, and guess what the dove did? It hovered over the waters, and it was a new beginning, a new creation. So in that sense, Noah almost becomes like a new Adam with a new creation, new beginning, the water and the spirit. And then we're going to go to another example is with Moses. And what happens is that Moses is going to take the Israelites out of Egypt, and they're going to leave Egypt, and then they're going away, and then the Egyptian army is following. And so the Israelite people are starting to move a little bit quicker, and then they realize, oops, there's a body of water in front of them, and there's an army behind them, the Egyptian army. What are you going to do? Are you going to swim across? You know the story. Moses takes up his staff, and he's able to divide the waters so that the Israelites are to pass through. But if you read carefully, it's the night before that a great wind came and blew the waters so that they would separate, wind and water. And so the Israelites passed through the waters, The Egyptian army follows. Once the Israelites pass through, the Egyptian army is right in the middle of the water, and the water comes back and crushes them. And so it's a new life, a new beginning for the Israelites. They are free. And so then we move on to where Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist. Of course, he's in the Jordan River, water again. And what about the Spirit? The dove came on him, the Holy Spirit, and the Father said, "This is my beloved Son, listen to him." And then we're going to get to the end of Jesus' life where he's on the cross. And if you remember, somebody took a spear and pierced his side, and what came out? Blood, and you got it, water. And so you got water. And you say, well, where's the Spirit? Well, if you listen carefully to scriptures, when Jesus is on the cross, you got the water coming out of his side, but just before he died, he literally expired. And what does the word expired mean? Literally spirited. Ex means out, like exit, and spirit, he let the Spirit out. He breathed his last. He gave his breath. He gave his Spirit. And so you got water and Spirit. And so Jesus gave his breath. He expired. He expirited. And then you'll find out that after he died and rose from the dead, and he spent time with his friends on earth, and then he, very carefully in the Gospel of John, Jesus breathes on them. Remember? Spirit, breath, wind. It's all the same word in Hebrew. Jesus breathed on them and said, the sins you forgive, they are forgiven. And so you have this new life. And it's all water, spirit, water, spirit, water. Typology number 2. And here I have in the background, you can probably figure out that this is Adam when he's in his deep sleep, and from the side of Adam comes Eve. So this is going to be a prefigurement of the new Adam. And so let's just take a look at Adam. Notice that Adam was put into a deep sleep. While he was in the deep sleep, God took a rib from the side, hint, side, and created Eve. This is all foreshadowing the new Adam, and guess who the new Adam is? It's Jesus. And so what's going to happen is that the new Adam, Jesus, is also going to go through a deep sleep. He's going to die on the cross, a deep sleep, a death. And guess what? When he's on his deep sleep, a lance pierces his side, and out flows blood and water. And the water is what we have today, the form of our baptism, which creates, in a sense, the new Eve, the church. Of course, Mary being the first church in that sense. And so we have Jesus being the new Adam, and from his side, blood and water, the water for baptism, which forms the church. You and I are part of the church, the bride, through baptism. Of course, the blood is the Eucharist, which we're continually fed. And so you have this prefigurement of the new Adam and the water flowing from the side, forming the church, the bride. Typology number 3, again, we're going to use Adam again. Of course, the new Adam is Jesus Christ. You'll notice that Adam, when he's in the garden, and after they fall, they sin and disobey God, you'll notice that he's in the garden and he's going to be tilling, working hard. And one of the consequences of sin is that he'll work hard and kind of bear no fruit or little fruit. And he'll be sweating. And he'll also, when forming the fruit, it'll be thorns and thistles. And it's just not exactly what he wants. And so this is all going to be a preparation where it's going to point to the new Adam. Of course, Jesus Christ is the new Adam. And he also happens to be in a garden called the Garden of Gethsemane. And you'll notice that when he's in the Garden of Gethsemane, he's also sweating, not just sweat, but blood. And you'll notice that he's eventually going to have the crown of thorns. So in other words, the consequences of Adam is also, Jesus is going to take all the consequences upon himself, even death, because Adam will have to die, and Jesus, the new Adam, will also die, but he'll turn that death into a new life, a resurrection. And that's why you and I have all the hope in the world through Jesus Christ, the new Adam. Typology number 4. And as you see behind here, we got the ark and all the animals on it. So it's the story of Noah. And this is a very simple one where Noah is going to prepare us for the New Testament, and Jesus is going to be like the new Noah. And so you'll notice that the ark is made out of wood, and there's also water. Wood and water. And you'll notice that, and you can also add the Spirit as well, because he's going to send the dove out for new life. And so wood, water, and the Spirit, well, Noah was saved by wood and the water, and of course the Spirit. Jesus, the new Noah, is going to be on wood, the cross, and there's water from the side of Christ, and he's going to give his breath. He's going to he exspirited himself. And so we're going to get new life through the wood, the water, and his expiring, giving his breath. Typology number 5, it's one of my favorites, and you have behind me here is Abraham and his son Isaac. And you know the story very well, so that Abraham was told for him to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. And so Abraham and Isaac are going to climb Mount Moriah, and Isaac is carrying the wood for the sacrifice, and Abraham the fire and the knife. Now, Isaac is no dummy. He's trying to figure out, he's saying, hey, Dad, we've got the wood, the fire, and the knife. Well, where's the lamb? And Abraham kind of say, he's not going to say you're it, but he's going to say, God will provide. So, he's able to continue on. And so they're climbing the mountain, and notice that Isaac is carrying the wood, and they get to the top. They put Isaac on the wood, and Abraham is about to sacrifice, and the angel says, no, don't kill him. Abraham looks up, and there's a ram caught with his horns in the thickets of the bush. This is all preparing us for the new Isaac, namely Jesus Christ. Like Isaac, who carried his wood for the sacrifice, Jesus, the new Isaac, is also going to carry wood, namely in the shape of a cross, or for the cross. And so he's going to carry it. And rather than having a substitute, as Abraham looked up and he saw a ram with his horns caught in the thickets, Jesus also, likewise, you'll notice that his poor little head will be caught in the thickets of the thorns. And so all of this is preparing us for the new Isaac, namely Jesus. He is going to be the true sacrifice. So when God said, or when Abraham said to Isaac, God will provide, he literally did, almost in the same place, because Mount Moriah is in Jerusalem, about 2,000 years later, and the true lamb is Jesus, and we see it foreshadowed through Isaac. Typology number 6, and behind me I have Israel, and he has his 12 sons. And you'd figure, why did Jesus choose 12 apostles? Well, you already know the answer, because it's already foreshadowed in the Old Testament. Israel had the 12 sons, and each son had lots of children, and then their children had tons of children, and then their children had oodles of children. And so that each son became a leader of his own tribe. Hence you have the 12 tribes of Israel. And so when Jesus chooses the 12 apostles, he's basically saying, I'm making the new Israel. And hence, that's where the Catholic Church comes. We're called the apostolic, from the 12 apostles who were sent out. And so that's why Jesus chose 12, to signify he's making the new Israel. Typology number 7, and we're still doing Israel. Israel, remember, had 12 sons, which became the 12 tribes, and they were in the desert for 40 years. Well, this is all prefiguring a new Israel, namely Jesus. Israel, you have to remember, can be seen as two things. Israel is an individual person who used to be called Jacob. At the same time, Israel is a nation, the 12 tribes, so it's both. So that when we jump to the New Testament, Jesus is the new Israel. You'll notice that he's in the desert, just like the Israelites were in the desert for 40 years. Jesus went into the desert for 40 days and he fasted. As the Israelites were in the desert for 40 years, they were tested and they failed. They were called to be obedient to God, but they failed to be obedient. Jesus is the new Israel who goes into the desert for 40 days. He's tested, remember the 3 temptations, and he passed the tests. And so Jesus is the new Israel who is going to show us the way. Typology number 8, and we are at the story of Joseph in the Old Testament. And of course, you know that Joseph is a prefigurement or foreshadowing the new Joseph, which is Jesus. So let's take a look at the story of Joseph. You know the story of Joseph. He's one of the brothers of the 12, and the other brothers didn't like him. And so anyways, they wanted to kill him, but they didn't. So they ended up selling him, and Joseph went down to Egypt. And of course, he interprets Pharaoh's dream, and then Pharaoh makes him prime minister of all of Egypt. And for Joseph, he interpreted the dream, and this was the dream that he said to Pharaoh. Pharaoh, your dream is you had 7 healthy cows followed by 7 unhealthy cows who gobbled up all of the healthy cows and were no better off. So what was the meaning of the dream? Well, you're going to have, Pharaoh, you're going to have 7 good years of crops followed by 7 years of famine, and the 7 years of famine are going to gobble up all your food and you'll all starve to death. However, during your 7 years of famine, if you store up grains, build big granaries, barns, and fill them up. And you can just see how they fill them up so that they could have plenty of food during the 7 years of famine. And of course, what happens is that when the 7 years of good times is finished, we enter into the famine, and guess what? The whole world is coming to Joseph, including the brothers who wanted to kill him. And so what happens is, in the end, that Joseph, you know the story, he actually forgives his brothers. And what you'll notice is that build up the granaries, grain. What do you make grain with? You make bread. So Joseph provided bread for the whole world. This is all foreshadowing the new Joseph, because Jesus is the new Joseph who's going to provide the living bread, the Eucharist, for the whole world. Did Joseph forgive his brothers? You bet. Does Jesus forgive you and I? You bet. That's why we have a sacrament of confession. Of course, the Eucharist is the sacrament of the Eucharist as well. So we see a foreshadow of Joseph, and Jesus is fulfilling Joseph becoming the new Joseph. Typology number 9, and what we have behind me here is Moses and the 10 Commandments. So let's take a look at the 10 Commandments, which is going to point us to the New Testament, the New Testament. So Moses goes up a mountain, Mount Sinai, to get the 10 Commandments, the law. So Moses goes up a mountain to give the law. Moses, mountain, law. This is all prefiguring a new Moses in the New Testament. And guess who the new Moses is? It's Jesus. Jesus also goes up a mountain, Sermon on the Mount, and he gives the new law, which is the Beatitudes. So what's the connection? Well, the Old Testament, where you have the 10 Commandments, the law, it's not enough, because I can follow the law and yet be very far away from God. The law says go to Mass every Sunday. So I go to Mass every Sunday, but I show up and I'm looking at my watch and can't wait to get out of here, and I show up. Now, did I keep the law? Yeah, on one level, but I have the wrong attitude. So that's why not only do I have to go as the law tells me, but I want to also have the right spirit. I want to go. And that's why they're called the Beatitudes. You have the right attitude behind the law. So not only do I have to go, but I want to go. And we receive the Spirit, especially at baptism, where we become the children of God. Not a bunch of slaves, but children who hopefully will willingly want to serve. And another example would be do not steal as a law. But maybe I haven't taken anything physically, but boy, am I ever jealous and envious of all those people, and they got greener grass and got more toys, and in my heart I'm grudging and jealous and envious. Well, I haven't taken anything, so I've kept the law on one level, but I got the wrong attitude. I don't have the right attitude behind the law. So not only do I not take it, but I don't even desire envious or jealousy or anything, so that I'm truly free. And so Jesus is the new Moses who goes up the new mountain, the Sermon on the Mount, to give the new law, the Beatitudes. Typology number 10. And you have behind here the manna, and this is what they figured maybe manna might have looked like. Remember the manna that fell from heaven, and the Israelites were able to scoop it up and turn it into bread. So let's take a look at the Israelites. Now you'll notice that the Israelites, they passed, after they leave Egypt, they pass through the waters of the Red Sea. They pass through, the Egyptian army follows, and the water crushes them, and the Israelites are free. They're in the desert. They're on a pilgrimage to the promised land. And how are they fed? Well, with the manna that God gave. Now, you'll notice the pattern here. They pass through water, they're free, they're fed manna, food for the journey, and they're on the way to the promised land. This is all prefiguring, foreshadowing a new Israelite, or a new Israel. And the new Israel are all the baptized. And so you'll notice that all the baptized people, they pass through waters, the waters of baptism. And on this side of the water, before baptism, we're under the tyranny of Satan. But once we go through the waters of Jesus Christ, through the baptism, then we're free in Christ. But however, we're not home yet. We're not in the promised land, heaven yet. And so we're on a pilgrimage, we're on a journey, and we need food. So what is God going to feed us? The new manna, which is the Eucharist. So you can see that baptism, then we have the Eucharist, which is leading us to the promised land, heaven. Typology number 11. And so behind me, we have the Passover. And you'll notice that the Passover is going to be a foreshadow, a prefigurement of a new Passover. Okay, so let's take a look at the old Passover. And you'll notice that the Israelites were in Egypt, and we've had the 10 plagues, the water turning to blood, the frogs, all the way to the 10th plague, where the angel of death is going to pass over and kill every firstborn. Now the Israelites were told, if you want to keep your firstborn alive, you got to do the Passover meal. So what did they have to do? They had to take a lamb. They had to kill the lamb. They take the blood, sprinkle it on the door post, and then they had to take the lamb, they had to roast it, and then they had to eat it, because it's a Passover meal, a meal you have to eat. And so likewise, this is a foreshadow, a prefigurement of something much greater to come. Did you know that the Last Supper is in the context of a Passover meal? And you'll notice that the Mass is the continuation of the Last Supper. And so what do we have? The new Passover meal. So the new Passover meal, which is we celebrate the Mass, we have a new lamb, namely Jesus is the new lamb. He's slaughtered, he's on the cross, and the blood is being poured out, and we have to eat him. Notice during Mass, at the very end, the priest will hold up Jesus, say, this is, behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. What do we do with the lamb? We eat it because it's a Passover meal. Jesus is the new lamb in the new Passover meal. Typology number 12, and you can probably see behind me we have Goliath, the big guy, and David. And so David is going to be a prefigurement of a new David, namely Jesus. So let's take a look at David. So David, you'll notice that he is, well, first of all, he's a shepherd. And I guess who Jesus, he is the good shepherd. You'll notice that David becomes a king. He wears a crown. You'll notice that Jesus also is a king, and he wears a different type of crown, the crown of thorns. You'll notice that David sits on a chair, a throne. You'll notice that Jesus, the new David is on a throne, namely the cross becomes the throne. Jesus reigns from the throne, his cross. And you'll notice that David is from the son of Jesse. And so Jesus also is from the root of Jesse as well. You'll notice that David is from the tribe of Judah, and the scepter shall not leave Judah. You'll notice that the new David, Jesus, is also from Judah. Again, the scepter shall not leave the tribe of Judah. And you'll notice that David is a king, so he has a kingdom. Jesus is the new king for the new kingdom. And guess what? You and I pray for the new kingdom every day. When we pray the Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. We're constantly praying for the king. And so Jesus is supposed to be the king of your life. He's supposed to reign in every part of your life. And so that the more I enter into our relationship with the king, then the kingdom will grow. Typology number 13, and we're going to do King Solomon, the guy who built the temple. And so let's take a look at Solomon, who's going to prefigure the new Solomon, namely Jesus. And so Solomon in the Old Testament is the wisest man who's going to build a house, a temple, and the temple is going to be built on a foundation rock. So the wisest man, Solomon, the wisest man who builds a house, a temple on rock, foundation rock. So this is all prefiguring, foreshadowing a new Solomon who's going to be wisdom himself. Jesus is wisdom itself. And he's going to build a house, a temple, and it's going to be built on rock. He builds the church on Peter, the rock. So it becomes Solomon, the wisest man, building a house, a temple on what was called the foundation rock, is being fulfilled through Jesus, who's the wisest person in the sense of wisdom itself, who's going to build the church on rock, Peter. Number 14, and behind me here, as you probably can see, we have Jesus on the cross. You'll notice the cross is also a tree, the tree of light, the tree of life, and we have the fruit. Jesus is the fruit on the cross. Mary and John. So let's go back to the Old Testament, and you'll notice that there are 3 instruments that Satan uses to destroy humanity. So what does he use? He uses a woman, namely Eve, and Satan uses a tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, in which there was fruit on it, and Eve took the fruit and she ate it and gave it to Adam as well. They both fell. And so Satan also used sin, disobedience. So we got Satan using a woman, a tree, and sin, the 3 instruments to bring down humanity. Well, in the New Testament, God is going to undo that in a very special way by using the same 3 instruments. Let's take a look. So God is going to use the same instruments. So what's he going to use? He's going to use a tree, namely the cross. The cross is the tree of life, and on it is the fruit, namely Jesus. And God is also going to use a woman, the new Eve, and it's Mary. And Mary is going to give flesh to Jesus so that he can die on the tree. So he's going to take death and destroy death through his own death to give us a resurrection, a new life where there's no more suffering, pain, or anything. So the same instruments that Satan uses, a woman, tree, and sin, God uses the same instruments to bring about a redemption. Namely, the woman, Mary, the tree, the cross, and sin, death. And God uses all 3 of them to destroy the works of Satan so that you and I have all the hope in the world. Number 15, and you'll notice that we have a very special picture behind here. It's a tree, and you'll notice that the figure of Jesus somehow is engraved in there. So anyways, what I'd like to do is go back to the Old Testament, which is going to prefigure the New Testament. You'll notice that Adam and Eve, they took from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They took the fruit from this tree. When they ate the fruit, their eyes were open and they realized they were naked. And then they hid. And of course they disobeyed God and they were exiled, etc. This is all prefiguring a redemption that's going to happen kind of in the same way, but through a redemption. And you'll notice that on the road to Emmaus, after the resurrection, these couple are walking and then Jesus comes along. They don't know it's Jesus, and he kind of says, hey, what's happening, da-da-da. And they say, are you the only guy that doesn't know what's happened in the last few days? And then he starts to break open the Word, the Scriptures, and the Old Testament, New Testament. Is probably the first typology class, the road to Emmaus, describing the Old and how Jesus fulfills the Old. And then they get to Emmaus, and he pretends he's walking along, and they say, oh, no, stay with us. And so, yeah, okay, I'll stay. And so he stays, and then he takes the bread, and he blesses, breaks, and then he disappears. And you'll notice what happened. The couple of the road to Emmaus, when they were at the first Mass, basically, their eyes were open. They recognized Jesus. You'll notice that Jesus is the fruit of the new tree. You'll notice that the cross, the tree, the cross is known as the tree of life. And on this tree, there is fruit. Jesus himself is the fruit. And so how do we know? Well, we pray the Hail Mary. And we got, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. Jesus is the fruit on the tree of life. So that if you take from the wrong tree, you eat it and your eyes are open. But if you eat from the right tree, the fruit from the right tree, and your eyes will be open to a new reality of new life. Death in the Old Testament, new life in the New Testament. Number 16, and we have a beautiful picture here of the Ark of the Covenant. And remember what was in the Ark? It was the 10 Commandments, and of course the manna and the staff. But in the Old Testament, the Ark of the Covenant is a prefigurement of something greater to come. Because there's going to be a new Ark. And guess who the new Ark is? Well, it's going to be Mary. So let's take a little deeper look at it. So in the Old Testament, you have the Ark, which was like a container, a vessel, and the 10 Commandments were put into this vessel or this container called the Ark. So it was a very sacred container, vessel, and the 10 Commandments were put into it. Now what we're going to see is that we're going to go to the New Testament, and there's going to be a new Ark, a new, shall we call, container or vessel. And it's going to be Mary, the Mother of God. And so what's going to happen here is, you'll notice that the 10 Commandments, also known as the Decalogue, deca, where you get the word decade, 10, log, words. The 10 words, or the 10 statements, like the 10 Commandments. So the 10 words are now going to be climaxed into one word. And the one word becomes flesh in Mary. And I love this, the line from St. John of the Cross. God said only one word, and he said everything he needed to say in that one word. And that was the word that became flesh. And so Mary is the fulfillment of the Ark in the Old Testament. The Ark having the 10 Commandments now is prefigured in a much greater way, where the one word becomes flesh in her. And just to add on to that, we are the children of Mary, and we're like our mom. As mom Mary has the word made flesh, you'll notice that during Mass, the Eucharist, the bread, turns into Jesus himself. And you could say the word becomes flesh. The Mass is made up of two parts. The Word, the Old Testament, New Testament. You'll notice that a Catholic Mass always has Old Testament and New Testament, because you can't have one without the other. And the Word, and then the second part of the Mass is the Word made flesh. And so that when the priest gives you Holy Communion, He's saying the Word made flesh, and that we receive it, provided we're in the state of grace, receiving it, and we become the containers, the vessels, the arks of the new covenant. And so we are so privileged to become like Mary, the new arks of the new covenant. Thank you for watching, and I want to challenge you to perhaps go over it again. Maybe invite a new friend and have another glass of wine or a cup of coffee, and to be able to stop after each video segment, stop it and be able to articulate it back and forth to each other so you've internalized it a little bit better. And if you want to go deeper, you can go into Agape Catholic Bible Study, and once you're on this, then you can go under charts, and when you're under charts, you look under typology, and there's a whole bunch of more typology, a little bit more expanded than what I did. And if you have any questions, you can always just email me at the email on top.